And you made it completely peer-to-peer. Open, build on it, do whatever you want. Like, what would that look like? And he wrote down some ideas, and that's where the seed of Influence came from. And this was in like 2013. And he looked around for technology that basically could make this game possible, and he just didn't have a good option. Like running a PvP or a peer-to-peer server system was just way too costly for an indie studio to do and requires just a lot of like developers to maintain, secure, and ensure all that runs. And then all of a sudden the blockchain came out, like Ethereum came out. And that was like the light bulb moment for him. He's like, okay, this is a world computer. Like, this is where you would build a peer-to-peer game. But the technology just wasn't there yet. And so we had to wait till about 2021 before it was realistic to start developing a game on top of this technology. So fast forward to today, we have that game launched. It's built on StarkNet, which is an Ethereum L2. Transactions are disgustingly cheap. They're less than a cent to push in the game. And we have this game that's really what I would like, if I had to tell someone in like 5 seconds what it is, it's a space colonization game and real world economy simulator. And it's like this hard Scrabble world where you've been dropped in on this asteroid belt, and you're trying to colonize these asteroids and survive. And through that, you have a lot of collaboration between players because industry is really what drives this game. And it's based off of hard science. And so all the products in game come from raw materials mined from the different asteroid types. And then those are pushed through the production facilities. There's 4 of those: factory, refinery, shipyard, and bioreactor. And then there's the extractor, which mines things. And then we've got marketplaces where you can build and sell products or get liquidity from other people who want to sell products on your market. Habitats that house people, and then a few other buildings. And then we've got ships. And so that's where the game is now. You've landed down on this asteroid called Adalia Prime. And as a player, you're going to start to colonize this asteroid. And so all these colored dots, and you guys can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. This equates to one building here. So this would be a habitat, and I can click into it, and we can get some really nice 3D images or renders of these buildings. But you don't really have to, like, you're not required to do this view to play. You can play from the like top-down look.
But
But
I
we want
understand
to
right
show.
that it's one building per tile?
Correct. Yeah, one
right.
tile is one building. One lot equates to 1 kilometer squared. And so each asteroid is like the surface area is basically its bounds of like how many things can actually be on this asteroid. And so we can look here on this asteroid, and this is the largest asteroid in game. Adalia Prime is where everyone started. It's got 1.768 million lots of land. It's a lot of buildings. And however, this asteroid in particular is a C-type asteroid, so it only has these particular materials, and there are 22 raw materials. So, like, to support life, you literally can't only have this asteroid. And so you've got to go to other asteroids and start, like, building infrastructure, mining materials, and importing it to whether it's Adalia Prime or other asteroids to start forming the entirety of the production chains. And so this is where we're seeing players really dive deep, and like construct extractors and production facilities and trying to move them through these production chains to then find what is specialized for them and sell those at markets to then get more sway, to buy things that they need, to then further expand their colony. And of course, that creates also competition. This is you figuring out like, well, I'm mining methane and I can turn that into, X, Y, and Z, but it looks like the market demand for it's pretty low, or there's a whale who's mining a ton of it. It's hard to compete. Like, so maybe I should find something different to do. And it's always going to be shifting depending on, market, what's happening at that current time. And so, for example, here is another thing you might be wondering is like, okay, you can mine these asteroids. Do asteroids run out of materials? How does that work? So asteroids don't run out of materials, but there is a kind of consumable item in order to mine materials that you have to constantly do. And there's also kind of some randomness to it. And so if I were to like want to mine this particular lot, I can click on it. I have an extractor built. I'll take a core sample. I select what material I'd want to mine, methane, because the abundance is highest there. You can see 95.4%. Then I'd select where I'm getting my core drill, which allows me to do that. Then I'd hit prospect. And then you can start to see, okay, there's a discovery minimum and maximum here. So there's a randomness. When I take that core sample, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I know that I'll have a minimum, and then this will be the top end. And so it'll come in somewhere in between. And so you might hit it really big and you're going to have lots of minerals and you won't need to optimize it. But if you hit small, you can basically do what's called an optimization, where you're using another core drill to drill back into that same hole, and then you get a higher amount. Now, why are we seeing maybe these minimum yields at what they are and the maximum yields at what they are? The abundance of the lot, 95.4%, will set the maximum. It won't ever go over that. So the abundance is kind of that limiter. But the discovery minimum will be set by the classes of crewmates that you have in your crew. And so right now you can see I have miners on crew times 2, which equals 1.25. And then I have prospector times 2, which is plus 10%. So basically the minimum is now modified by the classes and crewmates that I have. And so I can go ahead, we'll inspect our crew. And so each crew, this is my crew called Rebel Scrum, and I've got Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Chewbacca, and Lando. So I went full Star Wars here, and yeah, as I had to. But okay, so in this crew in particular, I've got 2 engineers, 2 miners, and I have a merchant. It's probably a shame that Han Solo isn't a pilot, and I apologize for that forever, but he's locked in as an engineer. And so I have 2 engineers, which means when I build infrastructure and I refine products, I'm going to be able to do that at above baseline efficiency. If I don't have an engineer, building and refining will be reduced by 50%. So if, let's say, something were to take 1 hour, it's going to take 2 hours if I don't have an engineer. Now, if I have 2 engineers, I start to get modifications past the baseline. 1 gets me baseline, 2 starts to modify that even more. And it has a pretty steep initial boost and then drops off. So like if you have 5 engineers, it's 147% efficiency. Whereas if you have 2 engineers, it's like 125%. So it's like, do you want all 5? If you're only doing engineer tasks, yes. But if you're going to be doing anything else, then you're probably only going to want 2 to 3 max of any crewmate class. But then you're starting to have to realize that there's only 5 classes, there's only 5 slots in a crew. What's your composition going to look like? So again, this is where specialization comes into play. And you're going to have to be careful on what you pick and what actions you take once you have your crew set up. But
is it 5 crew per tile?
5 crewmates per crew, and a crew can manage as many tiles as they want. Now, there's an upper limit. There's a limit of how many actions you can take. So this game is really slow paced, and each action you take is quite impactful. And so if I want to mine something, for example, this extractor is extracting for 3 days. Let's see here. I'll go to a refinery, for example, and I'll go to refine process. I'll just go ahead and adjust this, for example. I'm just using random numbers here, nothing in particular. But this game is both really interesting in the fact that it's slow paced, but also that you can build it around your schedule. because every action that you typically take has a baseline amount of time it'll take, but also most of the production and mining actions you can set on a slider of how long you want to actually do them for. And so obviously the longer they run, the more you get. The shorter you are, the less you're going to get. But if you like to play, let's say once a day, then maybe you just set it for one day and then you come back at 4 p.m. every day to click your action. Or you're like, no, I'm going to play Monday and Friday. So then you set or 4 or 5 day um, for any action. And so this game is really respectful of your time as well. While you can spend copious amounts of time playing, and a lot of it's meta game and thinking about what you want to do, but the actual actions are pretty basic. Like you choose what you want to do, you choose how long you want to do them, and then you have to figure out what you're going to do with those products once you have them.
Excellent. Question on this
The
slider there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is there any so you choose a time, is there any variation in production speed with that time?
Oh,
Or is it purely
absolutely.
there is? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So how it works is once you hit 50% of whatever you have. Actually, this is um, more pertinent to like extraction. So when you're mining materials, the first 50% of core sample. So let's just say the core sample is 10,000 tons of a material. That first 5,000 is all at the same linear rate. So you're going to be able to, if it takes, let's say, a total of 5 days to mine 10,000 tons, 2.5 days will get, or you'll be able to do 5,000 tons in probably about a day. And then it'll be 5 days to get the full 10,000. So it starts to slow down as you envision like you've mined out that pocket of resource so much that it's getting more and more sparse as time goes on.
Yeah.
Whereas with refinement and production facilities, that's not the case. This is just standard recipes. So if you want to create one standard recipe of a particular product, it takes, let's say, 20 minutes. If you want to make 1,000 of them, it's just 20 minutes times 1,000. Does
Excellent.
that
So
okay?
wait, a quick yes and no just to make sure I understand. So if somebody is, say they want to use 1 hour timers
Yep.
and they're making the same end total amount, will the person who's doing 1 hour timers finish the total faster than somebody who sets one thing for 5 days?
Um, so it depends. Okay, so for refineries, factories, shipyards, and bioreactors, no. You how it works is there's a minimum amount of time per standard recipe, and
Okay.
that is modified by crew bonuses. So like it might be less or more depending on your crew composition and the traits that they have. But where it does matter is extraction. So if you have a bunch of miners in your crew, there's going to be some modifications there. But once you hit that 50% of the sample, even if you come back to it later, that last 50% of the sample is going to go slower than the first 50%.
Okay, and that is on the tile, or what is the word, that the proper word, not tile, but
The extractor.
the extractor.
So, like for example, here are all my core samples that I have on this particular lot. I want to mine calcite. I've got a 7,800 ton sample that's not been used. And then I will go ahead and select the place where the goods will be delivered once done mining. And so to mine the whole thing, all 7,800, 800, or that amount there in
Yeah.
tons, it's going to take almost 11 days. But if I want to do half of that, so I'll set 50% here. This is a community tool where you can set the percentage, but
Nice.
um, I guess let's see here. It looks like his tool might not be working properly, but
That's a
um,
browser plugin.
yeah, it's just
Nice.
yeah, exactly.
Was that by
And
Sly
it's
by chance?
no, but Sly is making tools, and they
Nice.
have two of them out right now. And so, for example, it takes almost 11 days to do 50% of this, or the whole sample. It only takes me 3 days and 6 hours to do about 50%. So you can
Oh
tell
wow.
like the rate drops significantly. And so the details pane will show you a little bit more of like how the modifications are happening or what modifications are happening. But the thing is here is that the strategy most people have found is you don't mine more than 50% of your core sample. Once you're done with it at 50%, you just do a new core sample because it's a waste of time. Now,
Yep.
if you know you can't play for 10 days, then yeah, just do this. That's fine. but there it's up to you. That's the strategy. It's like depending on how
Okay,
often you can get in and play will adjust kind of how you're going to use these sliders.
nice. And so on the core samples, so say we do that, we do our 50%, it's been 3 days. Can we throw down another core sample into the same piece of land?
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
can we do that ad infinitum, or is there any?
yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
so a core samples just take time and they
totally
require an
fine.
item. So you need the core drill and time. As long as you have those two things, you can sample a single lot infinite times. Now,
Nice.
you can also optimize each sample. So if I go to this lot and I click on my deposits, I've got 5 of them. I can click on them. If I haven't already improved them, I can improve them, which means I use another core drill and then it'll modify. So now my improved minimum will be 4,905 tons, and my current sample is 4,441 tons. So not a huge modification on the minimum, but I also have a chance of getting way more on the maximum. So that's up to you.
Nice.
Most people do this. They do core sample, optimize, drill. So like they almost find it always advantageous to core drill a second time to get that a bonus efficiency because a core drill only takes like for example the sample time only takes about an hour or 48 minutes with my modifications. What the big challenge here is positioning of crew. So your crew always has to move to whatever lot they're going to, and depending on how far away from the lot they are, it'll take more or less time. So my crew's really far away right now, and so it's going to take 20 hours to get to this lot. So it might not be great for me to optimize this lot because it's like a whole day wasted. But if my crew was stationed right next to this lot, then yeah, I'm absolutely going to optimize. For 48 minutes, I could almost double my sample. Like that would be huge.
Yeah.
Um, so also, I think something really important to point out is look, you've got one crew. They have a maximum of time that they can spend taking actions before they're just busy. You can't take more actions once they go into like their working status. And
Ooh,
and
nice.
that's 24 hours for a lot of actions. So like I can do core sample, core optimization, and then queue up the extraction process for multiple extractors all at once. And they'll run. So it'll basically schedule out the next things that they're going to do. But once they hit
Ooh,
24 hours of being busy, then they're no longer able to take actions. They're basically used up until that depletes. Um, the
that's nice.
something to realize too is that your crew is only busy. So let's just say you set your extraction for one day. It's only 1/8 of that time that they're busy. So you can manage like 8 extractors at once, and basically that'll then get you to the max busyness because it's 1/8 of time. So if you set all of them to one day, then you can hit each one, and then you'll be max busy if that makes sense.
So yeah, so one crew could manage up to 8
Correct.
extractors. Okay,
and
at a
and
time.
and this also runs for other things too, refineries, things like that. It's just they can only manage so many things at once. But what we realized was using blockchain, because you already have this account associated with an address, instead of forcing people to make multiple accounts and multiple addresses to have run more than one crew, because look, we know that you were going to run more crew anyways. So why not make that easy? I'm running a whole bunch of crews. So I can just switch. So my Signs Pointy Yes crew, I have as an engineer mining and refining crew. So I'm doing some things elsewhere with those ones. Then I can swap to Rebel Scum. Then I can swap to Holes Are Us, which is my mining like only
Nice.
crew pretty much. And then I'll go to Khaldun to do some more refining and manufacturing, and then if I want to transport some goods, I'm just switching. And so it's super flexible here. And also, if you want to split or manage a crew, you can do that. So if you don't have 5, you can add more up to 5. If you're like, hey, I want to split these crew into 2, you can do that, and then it'll create another crew for you. It's very flexible here when you're coming to crew management. Um, the next piece that I'd really love to show you guys, and if you have just general questions, things like that, or you're interested in one thing or another, just stop me. But I think something that you guys will all be interested in, and I think it's probably one of the coolest features of this game, is sharing assets. In most games, you can't really share items with people. And we knew that we wanted to do this. And so right now, how it works is if you click on any of the particular buildings that you own, and you go into the building management tab. And this works for ships too. And then I can show you also how it works with crews. You can go ahead and update permissions and edit the policy type. And if I'm in private, which is what I want the private policy. I'm going to then edit the allow list. And so I can type in a crew name. So if like I know your crew name, I can give you
Oh,
access to this building.
yep.
But I can also put an address in here. And then that gives that entire account access to these buildings. So if you build 100 buildings, you can then start to manage them with like an alliance really easily, being like, okay, you guys have access to all of these buildings now. Just give me your list. And I think Sly has built a tool where it will automatically input like a whole list of addresses into this.
Excellent. Yep. To bring in the DAC list.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So
Love it. That's amazing.
going one step further, there's a policy type called custom contract. So if you really want to dive deep and actually make a smart contract that says like you must own a bulk NFT in your wallet to access these buildings, then you could build that contract and then your users just paste the contract address in here and then update. And as long as it meets the logic of that contract, then they have access to your items.
That is incredible.
So
Yeah, I can definitely see
Could,
the
could
Eve experience here.
yes, and like there's so much
with
emergence of gameplay.
yeah, with
Sorry.
these contracts, can they let's just say I go out of town for an extended period of time or something. Could someone pretty much use my assets and
Yeah,
almost like a
yeah.
scholarship system?
Yeah, so actually, okay, so that's maybe one level higher. That would be like if I want to let someone use my crew. Um, when I say use my crew, you want to be very careful with this because when you let someone use your crew, a crew is a container that holds the crewmates, the buildings, and any other assets that you have for that crew. What isn't held by a crew is your wallet balance. And so like they're not going to get access to like your sway, our currency, but anything else like that's contained within this crew, they're going to have access to. And so how a lot of people right now are managing that as alliances or just trying to share with friends is they create a new crew that does not own anything, and then they go into the delegation portal. They say, hey, Mike, I've delegated this crew to your address. You can now use them. And then in building permissions on a crew that I control, I say Mike's crew can use all of them. So now I know that my assets are safe. No one can deconstruct them or sell them or do anything, but they can use them. And so now I have this container as a scholarship program would work, where it's like you now have characters to play the game, but they don't have access to like basically screwing you over.
Yeah. So if I understand right, you would create a new crew and then give the new crew permissions to a building, to a land slot. How would
Correct.
that? Okay.
Yep. And so here, I'm going to actually pull up another screen and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is getting into like levels of complexity that we didn't want to introduce to initial like brand new players coming through like random channels. And so we built an assets portal, and I'm going to stop sharing that screen and then I'll just go ahead and go to this one. And so we built this standalone assets portal. And so all your assets live within this. So, like my address that I'm logged into has these particular things in it. And if I go to crew and I click on one, I can then delegate. I then put that
Ooh.
address that I want to share with. So, Mike is going to get this crew. And then I go ahead and put his address, I delegate, and now it's his crew to use. But when you come back from vacation, or maybe they didn't pay up on their lease agreement that you're telling them they have to pay you maybe 1,000 sway a week in order to use this crew, all you do is you come into the delegate, you put in your address again, you hit delegate again, and now it's yours. So
That's awesome.
it's super, super easy to use, very flexible. And I think it gives just like, well, I love the idea of someone being like, hey, I want to rent your crew. And we're actually going to probably build that into the client directly, where you can list your crew in the UI and say how much you want to rent it out for. Um, we also just think that this is a feature that personally I've used and many people have used that is really important for you tell your friend about the game and they're like, whoa, that sounds cool. And instead of having them drink from the fire hose and like doing everything, you just go, hey, make an account, give me your address. I'm gonna share my crew with you. Like, there you go. And now they're able to play like whatever it is that you give them access to.
Yep. I like that it's
So
on a, well, definitely support in-game as well, but it's cool to have the option to delegate and de-delegate from the browser. I'm imagining
yeah.
people does that work on mobile? Is that site stable? I mean,
Um,
most websites are these days.
I mean, I would say that everything works on mobile. I wouldn't recommend using mobile.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's probably good advice just across the board, Web3.
Yeah. This game is built right now for desktop experience. And people are starting to use mobile. Actually, I think what would be really cool is eventually seeing a community application built where like you could do very defined actions via a mobile client. And so that's actually another huge thing that I love about on-chain games is that we anyone can build their own indexer and front end. Like
Right.
we don't control it. It's yours. Like you do what you want with the contracts. And so we already see like a whole ton of applications that people have been building that have just that. So like some features that are super helpful. For example, like when you lease a lot. So I'm going to go down to a lot and I'll hit. Actually, here's one expiring soon. So like I can set a lease for a particular lot that gives me access to building on this land for as long as that lease is. And I can pay to, hold that. So I want to say 100 days. I'll hit update agreement, and now we're good. Like that lot is mine for another 100 days. However, if you have 100 lots leased, that gets pretty burdens. Like that's a pretty big burden to then manage. And so someone already created a third party app to sync your leases and like make sure that you can say yes to all of them. You want to re-up on all of them for another 30 days, a year, whatever it might be. You just do that with one click in their portal.
That's very nice.
And they are also integrating Sway. So you pay a small fee in Sway. But what I love about that is it's like you're already using Sway in game. And so when you go to this third party site that's doing an action for in game, you're also using Sway. It just feels part of the game at that point. And I think that that's something I'm really excited to see more of. I don't know if your alliance does much development, but this game is very malleable when it comes to if you want to build an app on top of this game.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I definitely support that's one of the things that drew us all to Star Atlas as well as trying to bring the Atlas token, and just make it more than a game token, so to speak. And so I guess like this is happening here in that, I mean, it's like an asset management service that somebody is
Y-
creating, and they're adding
Yep.
Sway to it. So it's a little, again with the emergence, right? But more on the open economy side, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And so I want to show you guys a little bit more of the economy and like production. I think that so this game is so massive and it's really just a lot to take in at first. There's like mechanic upon mechanic, and that's really fun. The complexity is really fun, but it's you drink from the fire hose at first. It's just a lot to take in. And you
Oh,
either like games like that, you love Eve, so you're fine. You're gonna be just fine. But
oh yeah, I see a
um,
recipe tree. I'm set. We're good.
so like this is actually built by one of our community members, and it is the de facto place to figure out production chains.
Beautiful.
Um, when I say that this game's production chains are vast, let's go ahead and look at a light transport. So the ships are kind of like the end all be all thing. If you can produce a ship, you're at the end of the production chain.
Nice.
Um, this is one of the most complex things to build in game as well, to the point that I am just going down a single piece of this production chain, and it just keeps going. And this is, I'm going to light transport. Light transport integration is the process in which creates it. And I'm going to one piece of it, the attitude control module. And
Amazing.
it's huge. And so
Yeah.
like
Each one
you
of
can
these is a job.
envision.
Each one of these is a market opportunity. The more, the
Yep.
merrier. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And so like for example, what we're envisioning later in game when there's just a bigger player base right now, there's 320 active daily players and about 500 weekly active players. And because this game is respectful of your time, we like to look at weekly active players as kind of the better one. Like daily active, we'd
Yeah.
love to see higher, but like 500 weekly active players is really good. And so let's just say we get that up to 5,000 here in the near future. There's about 300 and something separate processes in this game. And so then you start to get competition on each one of those processes. With the current player base, basically everyone could tackle one process and like kind of own it. But this is really big economic opportunity where most people aren't going to craft a light transport from start to finish. Actually, I would argue that no one will do this. Like it's just so massive. You're going to figure out what do you do well, and then you'll buy the rest of the materials and sell at like the profit margin that you have of
Right.
like you know what the cost was. So, again, there's 11 different spectral types of asteroids. So the main four though are C, I, M, and S. Those four make all the materials. And so each product like light transport is going to require materials from all spectral types, and they'll need products that are refined and processed through needing multiple spectral types at once. So, like hydrofluoric acid, I can get from a C type or an I type. And then hydrogen, for example, while it's from an I type, you can also get it from a C type using methane. You could break methane into its components, and then as one of the byproducts, hydrogen would be one of them. So, like, a lot of these production chains are actually circular. You could like go from one to the other, or backwards or forwards, or start in the middle and get more of the products that go behind it. Um, and that's one of the beauty here is like the emergence of efficient processes is going to be something that like that's what separates the top players. Like you've kind of like discovered your niche of industry and you found an efficient way of doing it and you can repeat it. And like if you can do that, like you're gonna destroy on the markets. You're just gonna like people aren't going to be able to compete with you.
Yeah. And so in thinking through this, you guys also have marketplace localization, right? So there's all of these items,
Yeah,
but
let
then
me
you
let me
also
go back
have,
to sharing the game.
is each asteroid a potential market location? Or rather, is
Um,
each tile a potential market location?
so yeah, each tile.
Each
So
tile.
right here, we have a marketplace. This one was created. It's called the Methane Ring Mega Market, and I can go ahead and then click on that particular market and see what's listed on this market. Um, Now, I also have grand market view. So this is all markets on Adalia Prime. So if I wanted to go buy ammonia, I click into it, and then these are all of the markets that
Nice.
list ammonia. And then you can see like some have no supply, others have more supply. So I'll filter by like most supply. PCA volatiles and redox has 1.34 megatons, and it also has the most competitive pricing. And then I'll go in here, and then we have like what you'd see in like most DeFi apps of like the buy and sell side. Right now, there's no buy side liquidity because the prices are cheap enough. People are just market buying. But eventually, you'll start to see a bar come, or basically the steps on this side form too, where
Yeah.
then you have the mid price. And so you can limit order and market order for both buy and sell.
Beautiful.
Um,
That's awesome.
so yeah, I mean, again, like you can also own the market. You can build the market, and then you can choose up to 20 products that can be listed on that market. And you can
Ooh.
also charge a maker and a taker fee. So let's say you build a market and you're like, I'm going to be the methane lord. I'm going to make sure everyone sells their methane at my market. So you do 0% fee for people who bring liquidity of methane to your your market. So like the maker fee is essentially zero, but the taker fee, so anyone who buys methane from this market, you charge maybe let's say a 1% fee. And so then anytime someone buys methane from your market, you're going to get 1% of whatever that price was.
Beautiful. I like it's up to 20 items in
Yeah.
one market. There's way more than 20 items in this game, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's about 250.
So marketplaces themselves, I like that. So that sort of diversifies things a little bit, unless have players created like a giant cluster of marketplaces to sort of get around that by putting a bunch of marketplaces next to each other and trying to,
Yes, yes and no, but like there's always a way to compete. It's
yeah,
like and so how this game started was that the initial colony was set up by the team. So we put some initial buildings, we put products on the markets, and like that was solving the cold start. Otherwise, no one had any products to build anything. We are in the process of basically um, removing our seeded products from the market as we see players pick up the torch on those things.
nice, nice.
And that'll probably continue for another month, and then it'll be completely player controlled. And what you're seeing on screen right now is if you click a market, anything that's being shipped to another location, so it was purchased and now it's en route to be delivered, you're seeing
That's very
on
cool.
screen. And you can also, if the line goes towards the market, that's a product being shipped to the market.
Nice. And these are
Um,
presumably the different densities of plots are individual players or communities
yeah. So,
driven.
like, for example, this was just because of the way that the asteroid got scanned. And this was a random simplex noise generation of like materials and abundances.
Nice.
Here's like this really cool ring, and this is methane. Um, and so, like, you can see, like, all these people started building extractors all around methane here. And
Yeah.
then all the orange is warehouses, and then we've got some shipyards and a habitat and some markets all built in here. So this is like its own little ecosystem right here, because there was a really low abundance resource that was plentiful here. Like methane only accounts for 2% of Adalia Prime, and so like this was pretty valuable territory to try and take over and rent.
Yeah.
So I have another meeting here in about 5 minutes. My goal here was to introduce you guys to the game, let you guys ask questions, but the next step would be to get you guys to play the game. If you guys are interested in that, I'm happy to have another call, or we can, coordinate through, messages, whatever it might be. But I'm trying to figure out what does it look like to get your alliance to be a presence in this game?
Well, I love, I don't know about Solus and Farm Ninja, but I love what I've heard. Today I have, my next question was going to be how to buy an asteroid and not get scammed
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah. Okay, so a few things. One, I don't recommend purchasing an asteroid right out of the box. I would start on
Okay.
Adalia Prime and get your feet, solid on ground first, and learn the mechanics. But if you are interested in buying asteroids, it's actually built into the game, so you can purchase
Nice.
directly in game. You can go to the filters here. You can start to search by the different spectral types, how large they are. The larger they are, the more expensive they are. $90 is where they start, and it goes up to some absurd number. The largest asteroid in game for sales, I think, like $1.5 million or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but like again, we're that price is just set. Like, and if you buy it, you buy it.
Right.
And so, yeah, not to get scammed, you'd want to do it directly through here. You can also check secondary markets. There might be some deals to be had on asteroids, but Influence as a team does not look at or participate in secondary in any way. So it's more on you to kind of look at the markets there.
Excellent. Yeah. And on your question there, if you're
Yeah,
comfortable with
on
a second voice discussion, I would love to do that. Maybe we can get our feet wet here in the coming days and do a second session with some questions for you.
Yeah, what I
Does that
would
sound good?
yeah, I think that the best way to do this, and okay, so a few comments before I run here, because I do have a community AMA in my Discord, and
Oh,
you're
nice.
welcome to join, by the way, if you guys want to join in on that
Sounds
AMA.
good. Sounds good.
The starter packs in our store, so actually here in game, if I go to this top menu, the hamburger menu will take you back to the main launcher screen. There's a store right here. And if you purchase a starter pack, it gets you crewmates and sway. And that'll be everything you need to really get started. I just want to make one call out because we took some of the seeded products that we had on the market that we had at certain prices and have removed them. And now the community owns those products and they're selling them. These are wrong. We're in the process of replacing this. So like
Okay.
$29 doesn't get you this now. It gets you something, but I don't know what that something is. What is accurate is this. The top lines, 2 crewmates, that amount of sway, and $2. When you buy sway, you can buy sway directly. This is being sourced directly from a decentralized liquidity pool.
Beautiful.
So this is community sway and team sway all in one, just whatever price that it's at currently. The team has a huge wall at 10,000 sway per dollar. The price of sway is under that right now. So if you were to buy sway here, this is just directly coming from community selling it at cheaper than what we initially put that sway at.
Sure.
So super flexible. And if you download that Chrome extension from Illyrium, and I can send you the link on that, you can click on items that you might want to purchase, like an extractor, and it'll add up and tell you how much it currently costs on the market.
That's awesome. Either way,
So
thank you.
yeah,
This is
appreciate
amazing.
it.
I see Farm Ninja has some questions. I believe Agent Solis has some questions. So yeah, maybe we save those for a next time.
Yeah,
Let's
so
see what we.
hop into the AMA if you guys want in our
Oh
community,
yeah,
and you
there
can
we
ask
go.
your question. You can ask your questions there. Otherwise, yes, happy to follow up. I just am short for time right now.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Cool,
Well,
guys.
thank
Well,
you for coming.
yeah, ping me, direct message, whatever you want to do, and we can go from there.
All right. Farm
Cheers.
Ninja
All right,
says thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, have a great day.
Yeah. Good luck.